Thank you, Christina, for the invitation to this workshop. It's a pleasure to share with you my experience and also to have a chance to meet many other friends and colleagues of the recent past cooperation. So here I want to share just some figures about Rome. You all know it's a metropolitan city. So as or any other metropolitan city is to understand how to make evolution of their activities, of their services towards the objective of being smarter and smarter. I'd like to agree with some comments and conclusion you had in the speech before. You know that Bas mentioned I was coming from Brescia, which was not a metropolitan area, but a provincial area. But some of the considerations, some of the key principle and architecture, I can say there can be the same. Even though, of course, the implementation in a city, in a big city, is quite different from an implementation in a more provincial or rural area. But because are different the constraints and the opportunities. But I can tell you that some of the ideas that I'm trying to implement here are can be almost the same that I was trying to implement and realize also in Brescia. Anyway, moving from this sharing of data, you can see that we have around 5 million inhabitants every day in the city. Most of them are residents and a huge number of commuters and lots of university students. So this is just to remind to ourselves that we have a lot of citizens, a lot of companies, and at the same time, probably many assets that we can take advantage in a different way. But let's try to describe you how we moved from one specific need to the opportunity to implement some of the smart city concepts. So I'm in charge currently at the City of Rome to the Digital Transformation Department. But actually, a few months ago, I was asked to support a new office inside the Economic Development Department. And that office had the goal to design imagine. And in this chart, you can see that the architecture of that master plan. So we have some transversal initiatives such as Rome Smart City, which was the strategic planning for the development of digital infrastructures and services, and also the city branding. So how to define and promote the city identity in the global world. And upon these transversal layers, we are going to define some we call specific verticals. So the specific area in which we think that we can build a better future for our city. So of course, in the field of tourism, in the field of agri-foods, in the field of cultural heritage, and also in the field of what we call the smart businesses, identifying the specific approach of those companies that are investing on the use of new technology to redesign their core business. Let me say independently of the specific area of engagement. So it's a vertical if we refer it to the approach, but actually it could be also seen as another transversal layer. And let's move to the need. Talking with the councillor, while we were framing with this architecture and trying to build interaction with the stakeholders, in each of those specific area, we shared the decision that it could be very useful to build a sort of data lake inside which to start to collect information inside our organization, but also together the external players in order to be to be sure about the data upon which we were building the new strategy. And more specifically, also we started with some of those specific verticals, tourism and agri-food, and now also smart businesses. And we want also to create a data lake with information that could allow us to have a clear understanding of the current state of the art, but also the opportunity of monitoring the evolution of that area and to check how this evolution could be influenced or more monitored by the action line that we are going to fix in the strategy. So this was, for my background, a great opportunity because I immediately saw the opportunity that a specific principle that was stated inside the Rome Smart City Plan, which was the data governance layer as one of the key success factors to implement a smarter city, here could be matched with a specific need, but at the same time to start to work in something that could be useful for many different domains. And so we started with this idea of building a city data platform. We have done a market analysis, and we have found out that for us, the better choice could be represented by an open source platform supported in the last years by the European Union. It's named Fireware. And this is an initiative it's currently supported by more than 170 cities, more than 1,000 companies, and around, if I remember well, 15 research centers. So for us, it shows that it's a quite, let's say, I can't say mature because, you know, in this kind of things, there is always an ongoing development and evolution. But it's quite spread, so quite used in a similar context, such as our cities. And at the same time, it was made of many different objects that could be componed and reshuffled in a different way according to the specific design of our context, which, you know, it's very important. So we always have to find the balance between reusing some other initiative, but at the same time to be able to check that the specific things, object or services that we are building respond to our specific needs, which could be somehow different from the others. And for us, the approach was also an approach to test our ability upon this collection and processing of data to build public-private partnership models together. And I'm going to show you in the next slides that this also this object, this goal is promising for our important side. Also, the opportunity to use the data platform as a tool to interact with the stakeholders of the city, while while we are trying to develop a strategy, there is the need to interact with the main players to check if they agree with your strategy, if it's coherent to its own strategy, but at the same time to sharing data among us and to use some kind of objects that can allow to converge to the proper understanding of data, of information that we can gather from it. It's a very powerful tool and a way to develop this new approach of working in an ecosystem approach and model. So we started this kind of development. Although I'd like to highlight, we already had an open data platform and a GIS platform. So the idea is to build something different which at the same time could and must include those layers that I mentioned. But it should be something more connected with the big data world and with the capability of managing online a huge amount of data online, real time, almost in real time. Also with the challenge in the near future to use this kind of processing also to design and implement a new generation of public services, more, let me say, data driven by this kind of processing. So this is the kind of dashboard that you can have. It was considered that the development started or more or less last October. So that means that it can be developed in not in a long way. Of course, it could be considered as an ongoing project. In the upper side, you can see that you can select the data set on which you want to make analysis, the specific production chain that you want to analyze, because here I forgot to tell you, the first data set that we connected to the data platform were from the Chamber of Commerce and from the office of the city in charge of collecting and managing procedure, for example, for the opening of a new company, the closing, or at any kind of change, any kind of request to the municipality. So starting from these two data sets, of course, integrated with the GIS and with information from the statistical office, we managed to make this kind of analysis, and at the same time, at the lower hand, trying to enable this kind of layers connected from administrative layers. We know Rome is divided, for example, in 15 municipalities, but also we could go even farther to specific little areas, or connected with the urban planning point of view. At the same time, you can have different dashboard. So you can have an analysis. Let's consider the image in the top left corner, an analysis for the specific sector, tech sector of companies in Rome. We can have an analysis which is the percentage of IT companies or media companies or gaming companies or advertising, telecommunication, video, movies, electronics, biotech, and e-commerce. Or on the right side, you can have an analysis, an online analysis about the specific legal type of companies. So it's a stock company, or it's an individual company, or just a simple partnerships. And at the same time, as soon as you can read on control here in the upper time, you can see the result in the lower side of the image in terms of mapping on the city. But this was, let me say, something more similar to the data warehouse, actually. The opportunity of taking the real advantage of a city data platform based on fireware technology was to use and to connect to big data. And as soon as we had to face with the COVID-19 emergency, we started to try this opportunity, because we had a chance to talk with a national mobile operator. And so we asked to the mobile operator the availability of their data about mobile phones of the city users in Rome, with the idea that if they managed to give those data for free for us to the data platform, we were available to try to build with them a sort of business model, how to take advantage on the both sides in the future, to show us that those data could be useful for our current needs and for further additional needs in the near future. And so we can be ready to evaluate, to buy this kind of data. So we started with using the information about the presence of city users in Rome. In the red line, for example, you can see the wave of presence of commuters in the city of Rome in the first week of March. So just a little before the lockdown. With the green line, you can see a similar week in April, so exactly during the lockdown, and you can see the evolution of commuters, so very much lower for each day, and almost flat on Sunday and Saturday in the weekend. Here you can see another different kind of information. So with the points, you can see the position of shops, restaurants, so information coming from the Chamber of Commerce. And with the colors in the left one, you can see a heat map connected to the density of people related to the number of commercial shops and restaurants, let's say. So here was an additional step, how to correlate information coming from a mobile operator with information of a typical data set coming from the Chamber of Commerce. And at the same time, have additional information about this kind of things. So on the left side, you have information before the lockdown, or the right side, you have the similar processing in the same week of April during the lockdown. You have to consider that this was something that was not planned on our side. This is something that was an opportunity that we saw to show and to test, to check our intuition that a data platform can be something that can support a more programmatic approach in terms of planning, but at the same time can be something that can allow you to have a better reaction, a better resilient answer to the unpredictable situations such as a COVID-19. So the discussion now, as soon as we presented this dashboard to the Councillor of Economic Development, is let's try to use this kind of things, this kind of approach to monitor the restarting phase of economic system. So how we can gather information from this kind of different data sets, cross-domain data sets, still focusing on our own initial needs, which is better understanding the current snapshot of our domain, but also trying to develop the development policies in the strategy more, let me say, in a data-driven approach rather than just trying to have a balance between the different opinion of the main stakeholders. So you can imagine that it's not an easy way, but it's a way that is collecting positive reaction, positive feedback, because each of the players at the table have the clear understanding that it's something more neutral. It's not that it's our opinion that is going to be more important than their opinion, but it's something that can be discussed upon data. And what's going on now? So starting from this initial need, let me say, an easy and intuition about how to use the data platform for economic development as the initial step, which from one side was already a task of a data governance approach, but from the stakeholder, my stakeholder council, was an initial addition to the strategy. Now he is more and more convinced that is going to develop another dashboard more connected to the tourism. So he asking me to start a new contract, which is going to next Tuesday. I'm presenting the new project, and we also started to talk with the mobility departments and all the other in-house companies that are in charge of some of the mobility services, the metro and the buses company. And we showed them the application, and they also decided to start a dashboard for their own specific domain. But what is nice is that we all agree in the area of economic development, tourism side, and mobility to develop this kind of dashboards strictly connect on the same data lake on the basis. So a single data lake in which we can insert data coming from tourism, from agency of tourism, for mobility companies, from chamber of commerce, from telecom operation. So that concept that Bas well explained in terms of converged data, and as a data lake that is able to be crossed about many domains, even if each of the domain operator can use their own dashboard. But the point is that different that in the past, they can have access to other data that can show them much more information and understanding on the phenomenon, because they can cross-correlate information on their specific domain with information coming from the other. So imagine that at the mobility department now, they are able not only to see data coming from their own department and from the companies which are in charge of the metropolitan services and bus services, and from taxi and from car sharing service and so on. But they are also able to cross and to overlap with information coming from the mobile operator to show which are commuters, which are tourists, because there is information of you are coming from another region, you are coming from other countries. And at the same time, you can cross also with the Chamber of Commerce. So how the mobility could be connected with people or with... The result is that more and more the stakeholders are asking new type of analysis. And what is nice is that having in common this data lake, we are able now, quite simply, let me say, to develop new dashboards. Because, and as soon as we develop new dashboard, the data platform is becoming more stronger and stronger. And another point that we are now investing is much connected with the heat map, not only for operators, but heat maps also for citizens. So next week, we are going to present a common app. You can say yet another app for citizens to signal, for example, some kind of gathering in the city, or so to signal crossroads that are not well kept or assigned, or some other type of bad collection of waste. But the difference in the past is that we are not going to deal with each single signals, which is a huge approach that it requires us to manage and to organize the activity of many departments. But the idea is just to collect this kind of information coming from the app, put that information in the data platform, and give back through an heat map, so that just the participation of this sharing of data made by the citizen itself can produce an heat map where the citizen can take his own decision, because it can be updated and can understand which is the kind of gathering in which part of the city. And so he can decide on his own if to go or not to go, if to change direction and so on. Of course, again, this is something easy, but because the data is put inside the data platform, we now have a chance to provide a heat map in the next weeks with additional information. So data produced by the citizen itself, together with data that is already inside the data platform, coming from example from mobility services or chamber of commerce again, or from the operators. And also we now have interest on this kind of things also from a global player in terms of credit cards. And so again, we would like to add a layer of information connected with the transaction of in the cities. So you can understand that let me say, we now have the feeling, although we have to cross our fingers, that we have gone, let me say, after the so-called break-even, because now we have enough information that every single piece of information added is much, much more attractive for the final users. I would like also to just to go back and forth the framework that Bas depicted us in the previous speech. A few connection with other projects that we are currently developing in our city, and that could, in our goal, help us to build the framework that Bas shown, and in practical initiative. So we are also developing what we call a reward platform, a smart city wallet. So the idea is that together with some external private players, we are developing a platform in which we can map the transaction as soon as the citizen is doing something that can be useful for the sustainability of the city. So, of course, we are going to develop a platform in which this kind of policy can be used and can be implemented in an autonomous way also from the network of our in-house companies that are in charge, for example, of the mobility, of the metro, of the car sharing, but also for the private partners such as Enjoy or Car2Go. So the idea is, let's share a platform so that the citizen has a single wallet in which, as soon as he gets some kind of sustainable action, he takes the bus or he collects and put the waste in the proper aisle, we can give him points. And then we can provide the ability to exchange that kind of points with other services that are provided by the players that are supporting the platform itself. So we ourselves, we can give discounts or access to our cultural heritage assets, to museum or to other places, or some of the players can provide, again, discounts to their own services in terms of car sharing and bike sharing. Of course, we are trying to build the rules for use of this, because we don't want to move to a commercial platform. We want to stay strict connected with, we want to reward action and behaviors that are strictly connected with the sustainability of the city. So we are going to map and to reward transaction only if those transactions can be somehow connected to the 15 goals of the Agenda 2030. The platform, of course, has a typical action of user registration, then the ability of identifying the transaction, receiving the token, and using the token. Another interesting point is that we want, of course, to consider cashless payments about something that we want to reward. That's why we are implementing this initiative inside an initiative of the Studio Ambrosetti, or the Cashless Community Society, because the idea is that Rome, after Milan and Florence, can support and can spread this information of using cashless payments to improve sustainability in the city. And we are going to use the identity card, the electronic identity card, which, by the way, is provided by the city itself, as an identification method and as a tool which can be connected with a payment circuit. So at the beginning, we are going to experiment with Telepass Pay, but we are going to develop this matching between the payment circuit with ID cards in a public way, so that that protocol can be given available to any other player, any other payment players, so that we can enable different players and leave the citizen to day by day to decide to use the ID card to enter a metro, to enter a bus, to enter a museum, and to pay if necessary, according to the connection that he had chosen to which card, which Mastercard or PayPal or any other secret or Intesa or any other bank. So this is a project. This is another project. Let me say, it's connected to how to make squares in Rome, especially in neighborhoods, more a place where citizens can practice their and improve the quality of social life, but using digital tools, and so making those places a sort of gym where to take more confidence with the services provider from the city itself. So we have some kind of similar initiative have been done in Turin, in Italy. What we are trying to do different is the PPP approach. So we have found a player that is able to invest in providing devices and build with us services, and is going to make the investment for about 30 squares in Rome. And we are going to give us the concession of managing those devices in those squares together with the municipality itself, defining together the rules in terms of which services we are going to develop, so that we can make a sort of revenue sharing after the income is going to cover the initial cost of the investment. On the first picture, you can see a type of monitor that we are going to place in the square. This monitor has Wi-Fi connection, has cameras that can control the area, and has two monitors on both sides that can be protected from attack from dangerous, from those that want to broken them. And it's a way to attract the people. Here the idea is also to provide, we are trying to make agreement with the newspapers, so that as soon as you can go there, you can download for free, for example, some pages of the newspapers. And we can also try, for example, to have agreement with some TV broadcaster that can allow to download, to have access to trailer for some kind of marketing. So the idea is that then there is a gym where citizens can produce energy that can be reused to provide energy to the monitor or to the sensor that are in the city, or the bench where you can recharge your phone, or you can you have, of course, a Wi-Fi connection. You have a sensor inside the bench that are connected with about the quality of the air. And an area for children where you can, for example, put some wearable to the children and be informed about if the children are moving far from this area. So, of course, we are now in the experimental phase, which we are going to implement in 2 squares by the end of the summer. And by the end of the year, we should be able to complete the PPP tender for the final data platform, the citizen wallet, and the smart square. So imagine that all the data from the smart square can be loaded in the data platform. And imagine that as soon as you are doing some kind of useful, your transaction, as you're moving in the data or are interacting with the services provided inside data, for example, bike sharing that are close to the data, or some production of energy, you can be rewarded. So you can understand that this piece of infrastructure can be connected to each other and can be somehow transversal to any kind of domain upon which you can develop further application. And this is the approach of our, so here I can summary the smart city wallet, the data platform, the identity card, the payment system for public services, the CRM, the smart square, and so on. So this is to show that these are, let me say, apparently independent projects that are interconnected among them and can contribute to the implementation of what we named Rome Smart City Plan, which was approved on last February 2020, and is mainly a strategy, as I mentioned at the beginning, is upon a transversal strategy to the different domains. But here I hope you managed to see how this digital infrastructure that are mentioned in the smart city plan can enable a new generation of services in each application domain. And here also we stated the basic approach. So we need to develop services in private-public partnership. What we have done, what we have been trying to do with the data platform, with the citizen wallets, and with the Smart Square project itself. We are also trying to develop this kind of things in an ecosystem approach, because it should be something that facilitated the growing of an ecosystem. Of course, we started from the 17 goals of the agenda of 2030, and connected in 5 macro objectives of the city: reduce impact for the environment, optimize use of resources, development of sustainable community and inclusion, innovative economy, and better governance of the city. And I want also to understand how and remind that the smart city plan is something that is connected with the strategy of a single of each domain: tourism, economic development, energy, or social or welfare. And final, I want to complete my speech with a few information about what we have been doing in addition for facing the COVID-19. You know that fortunately Rome was not very affected, by the way, but I want just to mention that many of these initiatives here I mentioned, and you can read or by your own later. And I mentioned this just because they were supported by the Office of Behavioral Insights Unit, which was the first initiative in the local government in Italy, although, for example, in the UK is practiced since many years. And I think that is something very effective and complementary with technology and with the organization. And that's why we are using, for example, we developed some awareness campaign on Instagram and TikTok during the lockdown to invite young people to stay at home with some kind of game, and telling us that they were not getting bored. That's the translation of the hashtag. And as you can see from the numbers, that was quite successfully. And also we are using some kind of information initiative in terms of behavioral insights to map and to give feedback to smart workers, because City of Rome has now decided to keep a percentage of 30% of employees at home, even in ordinary condition. But the idea is how to help the workers to understand the different domain of public personal life and working life and so on. So I just want to give this final advice or information, let me say. But I personally am convinced to invest on these kind of things together with all the other technological objects. But above all, there is this approach which is much more effective in terms of which kind of model, which kind of business model we can develop together with communication and technology. So thank you so much for your attention, and I'm ready for any kind of question.